10 years ago, roughly around July, August, something incredibly exciting was happening in the world of Doctor Who toys. Something that most collectors and fans had assumed was just a wild fantasy that would never happen, and that was the release of the classic series Doctor Who figures in scale with the incredibly popular 5.5-inch new series line. Not only is it amazing to think that in the first couple of months we saw 3 Doctors, 3 Daleks and some popular monsters, but that 10 years later we would have over 150 figures dedicated to the classic series, 1963 to 1989 and 1996. It's mind-boggling. It's even more mind-boggling that in the next month or so, B&M stores are going to be releasing even more figures from this line, albeit in the form of repaints. So how did we get this far? Well, first of all, we need to travel back to 2007, where the Doctor Who 5.5-inch action figure range was at the height of its powers. By this point, there was already a massive assortment of figures from the 2005 to 2007 series of the show, including a whopping great big TARDIS playset that is absolutely the best thing ever, and a police box exterior that is easily the most accurate TARDIS toy ever made. There was just one thing missing from the collection, and that was classic Doctor Who figures. Fans of a certain age wanted to put the Doctors, companions and monsters they grew up with alongside their modern successors. But up until this point, the chances of that happening were slim. In fact, whenever asked about it, representatives at Character Options basically said, it ain't gonna happen. Then, in the summer of 2007, something amazing did happen. On Gallifrey Base, there was a thread announcing classic Doctor Who figures. It was due to the success of the toy line and the ever-growing success of Doctor Who that it was deemed viable to give classic Doctor Who a chance in action figure form. Focusing on Doctors and monsters only, companions were a no-no. In that thread, they announced the first wave of figures. The 4th Doctor from Season 12, with sonic screwdriver and interchangeable head. The 5th Doctor from Season 21. The 6th Doctor from Attack of the Cybermen with sonic lance. A Sea Devil from the Sea Devils. Broton, the Zygon Warlord. D-84 and SV-7 from the Robots of Death. And Magnus Greel and Mr. Sin. All of which would include pieces to build the K-1 robot. To top it all off, they announced the first Dalek collector set, featuring a Dalek from the Dead Planet, and the Genesis of the Daleks, and also the Supreme Dalek from Planet of the Daleks. It was insanely exciting, to the point where I basically went off and started writing scripts for Doctor Who action figure adventures right away. Sea Devils versus the 4th Doctor? Yes please. The 5th Doctor and the Zygons? Definitely. The 6th Doctor meeting Magnus Greel under the guise of weng-chiang in ancient China? Well, that one didn't actually happen, but it nearly did. In February 2008, there was an interview with character in Tom Art's Action Figure Digest, issue 162, and that gave us our first look at the classic toys. And by look, I mean the back of the 6th Doctor prototype and a very small picture of an unpainted 4th Doctor. Still, the wait went on, but finally, a picture was leaked from an event in Australia, revealing our first glimpse of Wave 1. There were some changes from the initial announcement, notably the 5th Doctor was now from Season 19 rather than 21, and the Vok robots were packaged separately, rather than the initial proposal of a 2-pack like the Autons from the new series. Also interesting to note is the really snazzy 1996 logo featuring howl-around, slit-scan and starfield elements from each of the title sequences. Sadly, this was never used, although mock-ups of the packaging using this logo did leak, along with the mooted Season 12 box set featuring the 4th Doctor, the TARDIS exterior and Bessie. Obviously, that never happened, and the other notable change was the lack of the 5th Doctor's celery, which everyone assumed was missing because it was a prototype. Not long after, we finally had an official press release showing off the full wave and the Dalek set, and the confirmation that the 5th Doctor would have no celery, spawning Celerygate, which, 10 years later, was a massive waste of time and moaning about, and I include myself in this, as we ended up with several celery 5th Doctors over the years. As time went on, we were treated to specially photographed pre-production images and the reveal of the packaging. As August of 2008 closed in, everyone was waiting for the toys to arrive, and we eventually got our first classic series action figure, the 5th Doctor from Time Crash. That year's San Diego Comic-Con exclusive featured a repaint of a figure that wasn't even out yet. It featured the Season 21 trousers, as per the minisode, and celery! Oh boy, there goes that celery gate again. Initial plans to age up the 5th Doctor figure with paint apps were scrapped because they were deemed unsuccessful. There was a massive cock-up involving fans paying through the nose for the exclusive set on eBay, only to discover that 100 unnumbered sets were available for a mere £15 by phoning Character Options in the UK. Then finally, after all of that waiting, we got the first classic series figures. The Dalek Collector Set 1. Yes, by some weird fluke, the first thing we got was the Daleks, and they were wonderful. We were thrilled. Well, the ball joints weren't particularly mobile, which was annoying and scratched off the paintwork. Oh, and the eye stalks fell out, but that was all fixed on later Daleks. Then the day came when, after pre-ordering the full first wave from Character's online store, they all turned up at the house. Oh, what an exciting day that was. The first wave was a brilliant set of figures. We had 2 Doctors that had never had action figures before. The best 4th Doctor figure we'd ever seen. The best design of robots from the show. 2 very popular monsters, and 2 characters that no one really imagined they'd get as toys, but here they were anyway. To round it off, we had an awesome K1 robot that towered over the other figures. The wave felt very nostalgic for the Tom Baker years, and the inclusion of the K1 robot harkened back to the Dennis Fisher toy line of the 1970s. I then started a humble series of action figure adventures that went on to grow in popularity, and then later reviewing the figures themselves. I pretty much owe the success of this channel to that first wave of toys. Everyone was thrilled with the level of detail and care that had gone into these figures. The only thing that remained was, when would we get more? A second wave was announced in a similar format to the first, but this time as a series of cryptic teasers. Wave 2 was scheduled to consist of the 7th Doctor from Ghostlight, the 8th Doctor, a Cyberman from the 10th Planet, an Ice Warrior, and a Siren Service robot, Morbius, the Master from the Deadly Assassin, a standard Vok robot, and a Krynoid Builder-figure. Sadly, the wave never materialised as planned, but eventually we did get more classic figures in the form of a lovely wave of Cybermen at the start of 2009, which featured the most recent iteration of the Cyber Leader from the Christmas special that aired the month before. That summer saw the release of joint San Diego Comic-Con Forbidden Planet exclusives of the 1st and 2nd Doctor sets in both colour and monochrome, and the 6th Doctor repainted in his outfit from Real Time. Forbidden Planet then started a trend of exclusive figures and sets that year, featuring the 2nd Dalek Collector set and the 4th Doctor Adventure set, followed by 2 3rd Doctor sets, the first of several regeneration figures with the 6th Doctor and the 5th Doctor's tatty clothes, and then finishing off the year with a brand new version of the 4th Doctor from the Pyramids of Mars. We did eventually get a mass retail Wave 2 at the start of 2010, which included new figures than were initially proposed years before. And that same year, we were able to complete our collection of Doctors with the release of the 7th and 8th Doctors in the massive 11 Doctors set, as well as starting a humble collection of classic TARDISes. But sadly, a mooted Wave 3 never came to pass, and the classic range was confined to store exclusives until the last newly sculpted figures died out in 2014. But it wasn't all bad. The companions we were told we would never get? Well, we ended up with quite a few. We even got nearly all variations of the Master and their TARDISes, Sontarans and their ships, loads of Davros, Marcus Scarman, Sutek with light-up eyes, a Drashig hand puppet. Over the course of 10 years, we ended up with some amazing figures, and new variants are still being made today. We may have narrowly missed out on the likes of a Wheel in Space Cyberman or Richard Herndl or Bessie, but what we did get was a collection that 10 years ago no one ever dreamed of. And those 10 years were a particularly exciting time to be a Doctor Who action figure collector.